Hello, welcome back. We're up to episode 5 now of Whisper It Loudly. I'm Hugh Woozencroft. You know Jordan Jarrett-Bryan, and his Channel 4 News colleague is our first ever special guest on the podcast. Symeon Brown is here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Jordan's on every single podcast. Never brings me on anyone, so I'm glad to be here today. So, off the bench, finally.
Bring you in.
The good news is you got so much journalistic knowledge that we're going to get into, and obviously you're a football fan as well. You mentioned Trossard. We're going to talk about your beloved Arsenal, another Arsenal fan in the room, and a big game against Manchester City this weekend in a little bit. We'll also talk about that England shirt controversy, and maybe just, I think, move it towards culture wars. I'll explain it all, but let's start with England. We're speaking now Tuesday morning. England haven't played Belgium as yet. They have been beaten by Brazil at the weekend, so really we're reacting to that. It's a more general question, so no matter what happens between England and Belgium, I think it's fair to say we're going to talk about their chances for the Euros more generally, all right? Because the question I'm asking you guys is, are England overhyped? And the reason I ask you this question is because I was talking with some of the guys at TalkSport about England, and every time we've been talking about England recently, because we've got so many players in form, people list off the 5 or 6 best players, and they go, with those players, you've got to be winning stuff. And I went, but let's just flip it on its head. List the 5 worst players that England have, and then tell me if they should be winning stuff with those players. And I think we maybe saw a little bit of that at the weekend. I'm not here to say that these players are bad or otherwise, but if I start saying to you, well, England are going to have maybe Conor Gallagher starting for them, or Jordan Henderson starting for them, Harry Maguire or Ben Chilwell, Jordan Pickford's done great.
Choice. That's a choice. They don't have to start those players.
No?
Because there are better players in those positions anyway. So if you look at the full pool of talent, even players that are not even in the squad like Ben White, actually they can field 11 top class players, let alone half the first 11 being world class.
And how many teams that win Euros and World Cups have 11 ballers anyway?
Exactly, yeah.
It's very rare you get a team that's got like 1 to 11. Oh, they're all sick. You're going to have two or three passengers that are good enough to do a job.
France have 2 or 3 passengers when we look ahead to the Euros.
I'm trying to think of their starting 11 top of my head.
William Saliba can't get into the starting 11. Deschamps been saying he's got issues in his game. One of the best players in the Premier League right now.
Yeah, true. But then that'd be like if all of England's right backs were fit, there's going to be a bad boy right back that can't get into the England team. So that can happen in any position.
So let me take stock. Should England be winning the Euros? I want to find out how overhyped they are, in our opinion. So should they win?
You know, this is what I will say. I think it's very fitting that England are playing Belgium, a team or a country that handed their golden generation to Roberto Martinez. Because literally England are now doing exactly the same thing by handing an average manager, who probably is a great ambassador for the game, reins of world-class talent. And England absolutely, if they do not win this competition, they should see that as a disappointment and a missed opportunity, because you are never going to get a prime Harry Kane. Again, this is his final international tournament where he's going to be in his prime. And this is a guy who's like Shearer, Sheringham rolled into one, let alone the players behind him. With this team, this is their last hurrah. We've seen what the side looks like without Kane. And they are a team which is largely quite reliant on a lot of his talent. So I feel that this team is world-class. The players in it are world-class. What's overhyped really is the sensibility of the English and the expectation to always win. But in terms of the actual talent, they actually do have a team now where they should be delivering. If they don't, for me, it's the manager.
I wouldn't ascribe the description that they have to win this Euros. I think they have to get to the final. I think with the crop of players they've got, with the experience of the last 2 or 3 tournaments, I think that if I'm the FA, I'm saying to Gareth Southgate, semi-final is the bare minimum. You could go out in the semis under some circumstance whereby we don't kill you, i.e. I don't know if they can meet France in the semi-finals. I think they can actually. If you meet France in the semis and lose in a penalty shootout, that's not great, but it's not the end of the world. But the target really is final. We're expecting you, Mr. Southgate, to get to the final. In the final, anything can happen, right? You handle business in over 90 minutes. But for me, the expectation shouldn't be England have to win this Euros. I'm not going to fall into that narrative. I think the final is a fair expectation.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously in knockout football, there's always mitigating circumstances, right? And you could just be you could get a sequence of games where you're playing just the harder teams in the competition. It's just a bit too much. But I think that if you look at the first 11 that England have and should field, for me, I would back them on talent alone to be able to win against most teams in the world.
So would I, but let's explore the talent. You mentioned it's a world-class squad, right? I would challenge that. I would personally say England have one world-class player. They've got 3 or 4, if we're going to go into tiers of levels.
So Bellingham's not world class?
Not for me, no. I don't think you can ascribe world class to someone that has had a phenomenal first half of the season at Real Madrid. He's not won anything yet. I think we put these tags on people, in my opinion, way too early and way too easily. Let the guy do something first. He's in scintillating form. He's clearly a phenomenal talent. But this idea that he can score 10 goals in 9 games at Real Madrid, he's world class. It's like, come on.
Does he have world class potential?
If in this time next year, I called him, if by this time next year, could I foresee him being world class? Yes.
I feel like if you look at the ceiling on the players, right? This is a team packed with players who've either realised their world class talent, like Kane, who's now 30 years old, or people who are becoming. Bellingham, for me, he's arriving. In fact, he's already arrived. Top scorer in La Liga. Like, he's a world class talent for me. Saka, elite. He has a world class ceiling on him. I mean, this is even before you get to like people like Foden. Rice, to me, is now emerging as one of the best players in his position. I would say he's probably better than Rodri, apart from in most areas of his game, apart from probably just the build-up phase. And he's even improved so much in the past, 6 months under Arteta, that you can see that he's becoming a world-class centre midfielder in his position. So for me, if you look at the spine of that squad, it is, well, defence is a little shaky, but if you look at the spine of that squad, they have more than enough to contest the knockout tournament and be able to win it.
I agree. I just think to the heart of Hugh's question regarding expectation and overhyping, I think that is linked to the fact that we think that these players are world class, which I don't think they are. We can talk about potential, we talk about ceilings. That means nothing to me. Anyone can have a world class ceiling.
No, they can't.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll rephrase that. Most players with extreme talent, you could ascribe world-class talent or world-class potential to.
I disagree.
That doesn't mean anything now. What does that mean now? What does that mean for this summer's Euros?
Hang on.
Saka's got potential to be world-class, but that's next year. That's 2 years.
You've got Saka tearing up the...
He's doing well.
Tearing up the Champions League, tearing up the Premier League, the world's best league. You have him having a brilliant last tournament. You have Kane, doing it in every competition that he's in. I mean, if you look at the level that these players are performing at, it's not like in previous years when we go into competitions with players who were okay in their field. These are players who are playing at the highest level in the world, in the best league in the world, doing it in the Champions League. And we can say that, when they're on par in their clubs, they're actually delivering. And I feel that there's an abundance of talent. I mean, if everybody was fit, right, you don't even know who's starting at right back. I mean, when you look at the plentiful resources that the side has, I think England have to be disappointed to say that this is the country's best shot at winning a major title since '66 by far.
I agree with that, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. But I agree with that. But what I find interesting is, and I interviewed Southgate back end of last year, and he made an interesting point that he said, expectation is on this country. People think we should be doing really well. Yes, I accept we've got huge talent here, but the expectation is built off of what? We've not done anything since '66. So why are we expecting?
No, that's not true. Hang on.
You expect something from someone that has done something before.
This side made a final of a major competition.
Yes, but
to be a finalist is not a minor achievement. The narrative, to say they've done nothing is not accurate.
But hang on, but the narrative around England winning things has been around for 10, 15, 20 years. Sure. They won't get into finals then.
And that's when those teams, those sides were overhyped. And that's why I talk about the sensibility of the English and this, like, we're the best even when we're not the best. But in this case, we've actually seen a team evolve, a team improve, a team make a final, a team that should have won that final. We can see the world-class talent. You say they've done nothing. I say they've done plenty. Well,
nothing in terms of they're not won anything to say.
I'm talking about in their individual lives, and I'm talking about as a team, we've seen them, we've seen them make gains when they beat, Germany to advance in the Euros, and then to obviously get to the finals, and they should have beaten Italy and they didn't. I feel that we can see now that English football has arrived, English players have arrived, English talent is now the most desired in Europe. So you have, historically, major clubs in Europe were not coming to scout in the English leagues. They were going to France. That's when they had the best crop of players. Now, people recognise that England's what's hot. The English crop of players now is very, very ripe. And so for me, looking at that team, looking at that squad, it is the realisation of all of that grassroots investment, all of that money into the English game, and now you're seeing these technical players, athletic players, and I say, you know what, this is one of the few times in my lifetime where I can actually say, you know what, this side should be contesting. If they do not win it with a prime Harry Kane, major talent, they will be very disappointed, because you're not going to get a Harry Kane in the market again for a generation.
I think there is a slight overhyping based on what you're saying, based on people reflecting a lot on the individual qualities of the players and not the England team that we see. You're watching Brazil's third team pop it round England at Wembley, and in the build-up, they're just saying, oh, we're missing big players, we're missing this player, we're missing that player. Fans were saying, remember, they lost 3 games in a row before they played England. And I get it wasn't a great game, could have easily been a draw. It wasn't like England were massively dominated, but you just looked at England's qualities and think, what are our strengths? And possession isn't really one of them. When we play the best teams, you feel like that will always let us down. And there will be this reliability on athleticism, and can Bellingham carry the ball and make something happen? Can Foden or Saka carry the ball and make something happen? Or Grealish or Rashford on the other side? But then you think, can we really just turn the screw on teams? Pop, 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 pass, pass, pass. And most importantly, create clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities. That's always been my issue with England. They struggle to do that against the best sides.
Can I ask you, is that because you don't think we've got the players that can control the game, or we haven't got the manager that can implement that in the team that we currently do have?
Whatever the reason is, I'm just saying, when it comes to whether we should win a tournament or not, the facts are in front of us. This isn't a dominant possessional side. So, we played Italy in the final. And really, we should have won that game. What cost us was the fact that they brought on Verratti and Jorginho in the middle of the park together. They were able to just, in those key periods of the game, have possession, make us chase it, put us in a position physically that we didn't want to be in. And that probably cost us through extra time. I don't know if it cost us in the penalties. We could have easily won, but we were the ones who were kind of on the racks, and we shouldn't have been. You look at France, and again, it was just the quality of possession around the final third in particular that had them scoring goals from open play. We're not doing that against the best sides in the world. Yeah, people can go, we got one penalty, Kane should have scored another, but this is what we need.
At some point, you've got to control games.
This is what we need to do to be able to beat big teams, set pieces and stuff like that. So for me, an England team that is fluently possessing the ball, fluently creating chances against the best teams, we still haven't seen that.
But that's a different conversation. The question for me is not England has world-class talent, an abundance of brilliant players. Why are they not playing better for the international side?
My question was, why are we overhyped? And that's my answer.
For me, the players aren't.
But the team is. That's my point.
And why?
Because people ascribe the qualities of the individual players, particularly with their clubs, to the national team. But we haven't seen that in an England shirt. We've seen it in a Man City shirt and an Arsenal shirt and whatever. But we haven't seen it in an England shirt. We haven't. We've seen a solid side. I'm not going to disrespect them, but we haven't seen a side that goes beyond.
But then surely we should be looking at the ceiling on these players and saying we should be expecting more from the FA, from Southgate, to create a team that can win based on the players that we have. So I think that there should be a level of expectation of us saying, why are you not delivering? And that then becomes a question for the coach.
So I agree with that. But given what you say there, you can't then turn it and say, we should be winning the tournament. Because if it is what you just described, where we're like, well, hold on a minute, if we can't do that, these guys deserve criticism.
We should absolutely be disappointed if England should definitely be disappointed. And where my Jamaica,
you know what? I caught myself saying we as well earlier on. There's no we out here for me.
We're going to get to the England shirt debate.
Listen, but you know what?
There's a few people out there that don't want us to say we when it comes to England.
Yeah, well, I'll take that back.
It's a we, guys.
What I will say is that team is definitely Mandem United, pure Mandem in the
Yeah,
team.
yeah.
So I see myself in the team, and you know what I mean. But so man's not saying man's not England, but man's other things as well. But anyway, my point really is just that England should feel disappointed with the talent that they have, with the ceiling on these players, and feel like they should be contesting this championship.
I find my final point would be, I find the whole rhetoric around, similar to what Symeon's saying about we've got these brilliant world-class players, interesting, because when you really think about it, how many players in the England squad have been a significant component in their clubs winning things?
Well, I think
How
Real
many?
Madrid will win the league this year. Bellingham, you'd have to say, was significant in that.
That's one.
He probably should have won the Bundesliga as well with Dortmund. They missed out on the final
But
day.
didn't.
But you could see that he was a pivotal part in their season, which was successful,
Yeah.
albeit they missed out on the title on the final day as a youngster, right?
Who else?
This season, Foden's playing well, but I wouldn't call him the key part for Manchester City over the years that he's been winning stuff. Arsenal, if they win something this year, but ultimately
Let's judge what we.
I know, but
Rice
they-
won silverware last year.
All right, that's two.
there's several England players smashing it at Arsenal right now.
There are, but we've still not won anything. The point I'm making is that the expectation of we've got these world-class players that are
Stones.
brilliant is based off. I'll give you Stones. That's three.
Walker, yeah.
Do you know what I
Walker.
mean? There's the rhetoric is like, oh, we've got this plethora of world-class players that at their clubs are instrumental in winning things, and it's not
But
actually
the
true.
thing is, but we just named several names there. Doesn't have to be everybody, but even I would say Bellingham, Foden, Stones, Walker. That's a lot of trophies anyway.
Yeah, that's four players out of a squad.
But the
though.
thing
That's
is,
a
when
four
you-
The way
players out of an 11.
people talk as if there's like
That's
double figures
hang on, that's
players in
four
that squad that are
That's-
bursting with
hang on,
world-class
hang on.
talent.
That's four players out of 11. 4 players out of 10 outfield players. That's 40% of your outfield players. So I wouldn't say that's insignificant, to be honest with you. And that's even before we talk about Saka's FA Cups and taking Arsenal onto the next level. And like these are achievements. So I wouldn't dismiss it.
Yeah.
there's a comfort in the French side about how they play, slightly different to England. I think, you know, there's a lot of times where if there's a couple of changes in the team, you get a real change in the quality, the level. If England put their best 11 out, everyone's fit. I think they go to quite a decent comfort level, but that would be Pickford, Shaw, Maguire and Stones, who play together at centre-back a lot for England. Okay, Walker, I think, would be the main right-back, but I think there's others that have played there who can slot in. Rice obviously will sit as a number 6. It had obviously been Phillips for quite a while alongside him, and I think that was England's most comfortable team. For me now, that player has to be Bellingham, who's a very different player, and I know people want to see him near the penalty box. He's been scoring goals for Real Madrid, but I think if you do that in England side, you almost have to include a player who's out of form alongside Declan Rice, that person being someone like Henderson. Conor Gallagher, I wouldn't say is out of form, but obviously doesn't have the same level of experience, maybe doesn't have that impact in an international shirt as yet. Who knows, it might be someone like Kobbie Mainoo, but ultimately that's another youngster. So it's more of a risk if you don't play Bellingham alongside Rice. That means you can play Foden as a 10, and then you can still have your front three if that's Rashford or Grealish. I don't know who else comes in the squad. You can play Maddison as 10, put Foden out wide, Kane and Saka. So
It's a good team.
that's a good team as long as everyone's there and everyone's playing well. And that's one of the concerns that I've got for England as well.
France
that-
can play at 70% and still get to a final. Is that the point you're making? Whereas England got to be at their best to get to the final.
I
every
just think people look at the squad in name, a lot like you've both been saying, and think, it's a hell of an international squad, look at the quality there. But we haven't seen a lot of them play well together for England. You know, people, for example, our backup striker is probably going to be Ivan Toney. It's like, he's an inexperienced international player. He hasn't gone to a major tournament. So I'm not saying that Kane needs to play every minute or whatnot, but if Kane gets injured, what happens to England's chances? Or if Kane, for that last half an hour of matches, is Toney going to have the same impact? I'm a big fan of his, but and I think his character and mental ability is strong enough to deal with the pressure of being in England shirt in a major competition. But it might be Watkins, might be Rashford playing through the middle. You know, for me, I think the other sides just have a little bit more comfort. And actually, that's not to do with quality. I think that's just to do with time together. I think the other, France in particular, you know, quite settled front line. Really, in terms of, you know, you look at Griezmann and how they play through him so much. If he's on the pitch, it's just set. They've got a number 10 who can get on the turn, who can get in the box and score goals, and Mbappe, again, that's a get out of jail
Yeah,
free
got a
card at
magic
times
number,
as well, because
yeah.
you just give him the ball, he carries it 50 metres or he just smashes it in the back of the net. Although we're talking prime Harry Kane, this is what I mean, we don't create the chances for him. He won a golden boot, but it must be, at the World Cup 2018, but it must be one of the worst ones you've ever seen. Just in terms of the goal scored, because you're hoping that you're going to really create great chances for him. Look at the quality of the player that we've got. Look at the players around him, and we don't do that. And I think at times people think now, like you say, because we've been getting closer and closer and closer in tournaments, we have to go and win this one. And the final point on it, I think, is about Southgate, who you mentioned, because I speak to a lot of fans who say if England don't win the tournament, he's got to go. Some say he's got to go anyway.
I think he will go.
We need
anyway,
fresh blood. Yeah, but just wanted your views on it. All right, let's say he wins it. Do you want to go for the World Cup with him in charge? Or are you saying, thank you very much, Gareth, thanks for the trophy, see you
If
later?
I'm him, I leave if I win.
No, you as a fan.
But me, if he wins it, no, I think he should still go.
New manager 2 years before a World Cup. You just won a tournament. Confidence is high.
Yeah, but I just feel like you're going to get... We don't know what's happening in 2 years, but I agree with Symeon. I think this is the last year Harry Kane at his peak for an international tournament. So then you're getting a Harry Kane on the decline, who can still score 6 goals at a tournament, granted.
Yeah.
But I would move it on. I would move him on.
Look, if Southgate wins this competition, you have to give him the grace to basically do what he wants. If he wants to stay, he's earned the right to stay.
I don't agree with that. I think
I
the
do-
FA
I-
have
no.
to plan for the next 3 tournaments, and they have to decide.
Succession planning is always a thing, right? But fundamentally, if he achieves what everybody's asking him to do, he should be given the grace then to say, well, I've achieved with the team. Clearly, I've motivated them to play and win. I would like to take them into the World Cup. He's earned that right for me.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. England have probably smashed Belgium tonight. And everyone's like, why are these guys so down on England after they just won 5-0? Reminder, recording this just hours before England play Belgium. And I think they probably will smash Belgium, given they drew 0-0 with the Republic of Ireland at the weekend. Wanted to move it on to your club, Arsenal, both of you. Sitting just above Manchester City at the top of the Premier League table.
Come on, you Arsenal.
And they will be facing off this weekend at the Etihad. Listen, both of them having fantastic seasons. Arsenal have the best scoring record in the Premier League, 70 goals in 28 games. Also City, 63 goals. So they've been fantastic, really. Arsenal have won the last 2 meetings, essentially. Before that, they hadn't won against City since the FA Cup in 2020. Hadn't won the league against them since 2015. So we are seeing an improving Arsenal side that won at the Emirates back in October, won the Community Shield on penalties, have won their last 8 Premier League matches straight. City undefeated in 13 Premier League games. They've won 10 of those. A reminder, Arsenal will move 4 points clear of City with 9 games to go if they can win. Liverpool, a reminder, currently level on points with the leaders Arsenal. So, I mean, firstly, how are you guys feeling? Confident?
I am. What about you?
Confident about beating City.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't feel...
Sorry, I retract that again. I'm not confident, but I'm not shook. So I'm not shook.
But I mean, that's different. I mean, look,
I'm not shook.
I don't think we can feel confident about beating City when that's not something that we do regularly at their ground. In fact, we've taken some humbling beatings there. So I don't expect us to go to City and win. But at the same time, the momentum that we have, I also don't expect us to lose. And so I would like to believe that we can get points. And I think that if we're to win the title, we probably have to win. And I would also say that if you look at the games that we have to play to win the title, if we somehow manage to win the Premier League title this year, it will be a greater achievement than the Invincibles by quite far for me.
Wow, big statement.
Yeah, I heard that point from someone else recently as well. I probably agree because there were a lot of draws in that Invincible season. So it's not like Arsenal won every game during that season. So I'd probably agree with that. I think Arsenal have to win 9 of the remaining 10 games to win the title, with City one of those 9 games. A draw is not a bad result, but I think a draw puts Liverpool in the box seat for the title, in my opinion. City win, they're box seat. We win, I think we're box seat. So there's something on it, regardless of the result for all three teams. I think for Arsenal, it's about learning lessons from last year. We were in a similar position last year, and it felt, although we were in a decent place, we were going there tentatively, trying to do a thing. Whereas, and then once the game got underway, it was clearly men against boys. We weren't ready yet. We can go there and actually mix it with them. We've got Saliba playing this season. We've got Declan Rice. I think that triangle between our two centre-backs and Declan Rice, I think has been and will be the key for us in this next 10 games. We've got Saka coming into form. We've got Kai Havertz, who's had a lot of heat from Arsenal fans and beyond, who, even if Jesus was fit, I would still play him in this game. I think this is the sort of game where he will come alive. I think his movement, his dropping deep. There are lots of reasons why I don't think it's laughable to suggest that Arsenal could go there and get a result. However, as Symeon says, our record there in recent years is not good. So the smart money is on Manchester City. They've got weapons as well. They've played them in international game too, in the sense that pulling out players who are injured over the last few days. And Arsenal have done that as well, in my opinion, with Saka too. So they will have their big... I think everyone bar Edison will be fit for the game. So
it's a big miss.
It is a big miss. But their number two is not a bad keeper.
Good keeper.
I'm excited, and these are the games that Arsenal want to be involved in. We've gone through the mud for 10 years. We've been a banter club for 10 years plus. This is what we've worked to get towards.
Interesting point. Is that club dead? The banter club, the bottle jobs. I wanted to ask you both. Are we seeing a different Arsenal? Because now we hit this stretch of the season. This is where we customarily see Arsenal drop points in games that we expect them to win and suddenly slip away when everything seems like it's there in front of them to get. We've seen it in races for the Champions League predominantly, but now it's a race for the title. So have they grown? Has the experience of previous years made this a different Arsenal side? Plus some of the additions, let's be honest.
I think we have grown. I don't think we're the banter club, and I don't think we will bottle it. Even if we come third, I don't think we'll come third through bottling it. I think we'll come third because Liverpool and City will just win the next 10 games and we'll finish third by 3 points. That's not a bottle job for me. But the proof will be in the pudding, right? We go to City this weekend and get slapped 5-0. That's not great. You know what I mean? So the people come out of the woodwork saying same old Arsenal. But no, I don't think it's the Arsenal of the latter Wenger years for sure.
Do you think it would hurt the team if you did say, imagine you lose 3 in a row? And you win all the others, but you lost 3 in a row. That's how you lost the title. Because that would create that narrative once again, wouldn't it? And I just wondered if...
Rightfully so.
Do you think it would have that? But even if it's 3 draws...
I think this season is different to last season. Last season, you didn't have the same threat from Liverpool. And we were also ahead. So we were ahead by 5 points. And so there was daylight, and we lost against teams that we should have beaten. Or we drew against teams that we should have beaten. On the run that we have now, we're playing United, we're playing Chelsea, we're playing Aston Villa, we're playing City. You know, we're playing good teams. I don't feel that whether we win this league or not, it's about bottle. I don't even entirely endorse this concept of bottle. It's either you work hard and you show intensity, or
you're not good enough.
Or you're not good enough, and that's it. So I don't buy this bottle thing. It feels like a concept from a bygone age where people talk, well, have you got the bottle to win the game? And it's like, no, you have the talent, you have the tactics, you have to have, you know what I mean? That's it. So,
but people will say if it's a repetitive theme.
No. Last year you could say we had the talent to win those games.
Experience.
But there was something that went amiss. Maybe there you could talk about attitude or mentality or losing focus or stumbling. Maybe I might give it a bit of legitimacy. But in this, certainly for this context, if we don't win silverware this year, that for me is not a failing based on where we are certainly right now between the stretch between City game and the end of the season, because we're playing a lot of good teams, and actually the smart money does not back Arsenal for the league this year based on who we have to play.
That Giannis clip's coming out if you guys win nothing this season.
Which clip?
Giannis Antetokounmpo. Do you remember when he got asked? They lost the semi-final, I think it was in the NBA. And he
Oh,
got asked,
okay.
was his season
Yeah,
a failure?
yeah,
And he gave a great answer about, so every year Michael Jordan didn't win the championship, was he a failure?
Yeah.
I can see that narrative.
What I will quickly say as well is that I think it's a bigger game for Arteta than it is for Pep Guardiola. I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was after the Wolves defeat, Guardiola did a press conference where he said, we will win the league. And I was stunned. I've never heard a manager in my life say that. Normally they're dodging the question, oh, we're in the race and he said we're going to win the league.
Who said that?
Guardiola. And the chest he was showing, I don't know if he was trying to just boost up his own team or play mind games with Liverpool and Arsenal, I don't know. But that for me was really, really telling. And if I'm Mikel Arteta, I'm taking this as an opportunity to show I've arrived. I'm going to come to the Etihad where I've huge success with City as an assistant, and I'm going to slay the dragon.
One thing I'm interested to see at the weekend is Arteta's behaviour, because he has a tendency. I mean, it can get wild at the Etihad, by the way. You know, they can go through periods where they're under it, they're losing the game, and suddenly it's 1, 2, 3 goals. You know, they can score in those spurts, particularly at home, and the crowd always, they just wait for that moment. Listen, there's a lot said about the atmosphere at the Etihad, but in those bigger games, when it really means a lot, it can be a great atmosphere. And it can get crazy down there when you're on the touchline beside Pep. Managers get drawn into what he does. Everyone screaming at the fourth official who should be wearing a helmet at some stage, and you know, because they just get barrage. And I've seen it where I'm like, the manager's distracted here, and it works in Pep's favour. No one's focusing on their team's tactics. No one's focusing on, it's all, well, he said this, or he's running up. Why is he getting so close to the pitch, which Arteta loves to do? And suddenly it becomes a melodrama down on the touchline, and the players are looking over like, I guess we're on our own here. And I always say about Arteta, you know, these are the moments that actually he needs to ignore that. And he's got so much better, to be fair to him, this season at ignoring some of the noise. Yeah, he celebrates and all that. I think that's absolutely fine. But just in terms of the focus during the games, at times, last season before, I felt like he was distracted. He got drawn in. And he's got so much better at not getting drawn into that. So clearly he's maturing as a manager, and this will be a big test for him, just to ignore Pep. Ignore the Man City bench. They will be going absolutely mad. Everything's going to be a penalty or a foul or whatnot. They'll be trying to get the crowd on his back. They'll be, you know, the crowd that sit behind the dugouts will be getting onto Arteta for sure. And they'll be getting onto the Arsenal players that were sitting there and trying to irritate them throughout the game. And that does happen. Just needs to put that out of his mind and focus on his team. Because actually, I think, you know, people say that Arsenal bottled it in this, that and the other. But actually what happened was they just went through bad 15 or 20 minute spells in games.
And the game's gone.
And the game was gone. And you're bro, if you just could have rode that out for 5 more minutes, you would have got all 3 points. And I sometimes look at Arteta and just think that was on, that 5 minute spell was on you. Get into your players, make sure they're focused, make sure nothing silly happens.
But last year,
he's still a great manager.
Last year, what I would say is that last year there were structural problems with the team in that we lost a lot of goals on transition. Like, we were very, very vulnerable in transition. And obviously, when we lost Saliba, who was very good at recovery, that became fatal. And with the signings that he did make, he basically addressed that vulnerability in the middle of the pitch and in transitions, and we've been less susceptible to that sucker punch. So outside of just riding it out, it was him recognising the deficit in his own team and correcting that with tactics and personnel. And you know, I think that has been the improvement in the side that we've seen this year, even though at the beginning of the season there was a lack of fluidity for various reasons.
Whatever happens this weekend, it's not going to be decided. But I'll be praying for you guys. As a Manchester United fan, I'll be praying for Arsenal this weekend, because, boy, we don't want Liverpool City to win another title. Got to say, just very quickly looking at the run-in, I know you mentioned the Chelsea game for Arsenal. I didn't even include that as one of your big remaining fixtures. It's a big fixture, but that's light work for Arsenal right now.
I mean, they'll be up for it. They'll be up for it. So, you know, there's weapons there.
And I've included Aston Villa because I've just included the games that the 3 teams have left against sides in the top 6. I mean, they're in the top 4 right now, so I'm not going to disrespect them. Arsenal host Villa 14th of April, visit Spurs 28th of April, visit Man United 11th of May. City hosting Villa on the 3rd of April, visiting Spurs. That one's yet to be decided because the fixture's been moved around.
That's the one, weirdly, I think, of all those fixtures that I think could be the most problematic.
Which one?
Spurs. I think the Spurs
For Arsenal
one,
or for City?
for us.
Okay.
I think that's the one that I've just got a gut feeling could be the problem.
Away from home as well.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we got 2 legs against Bayern Munich in there as well. Which is going to put some intensity on the players.
We'll be fine.
Yeah,
We'll be fine.
Liverpool playing Thursday nights as well in the Europa League. So a little bit of, well, I'm just saying, it's a little bit of extra pressure on the players physically. Liverpool playing Man United 7th of April, hosting Spurs on the 4th of May, visiting Villa on the 11th of May.
I find this whole, and I know why you're doing it, but I find this whole.
You got to look at the running, man.
But why?
Because
What's a hard run in? We do it every year, and there's always shocks. What's a hard run in? I don't know what a difficult run in is.
Because I think actually the teams are at a level now where if they play to their best, there's very few teams that can stop them. And so you have to look at the other teams around them at the top of the league as being the only ones really with the quality to stop them. And the less of those games you have, the better. And that's from a fan's perspective. You don't see City. There's no point in me going, well, City are playing Luton and you don't expect them to
I'll be
drop any.
stunned. I don't, but I'll be stunned if there's not between Arsenal, City and Liverpool one of those 3 teams that drops points to a team they shouldn't.
No. Listen, everyone will drop points.
In fact, I'll put money on it.
Everyone will drop points. But I think really when you look at the big teams, you're talking about, would you possibly lose those games?
Well, it's a maths, isn't it? It's basically, when you're at the beginning of the season, which game do you expect to win? Do you expect to beat United at home? Do you expect to beat City at home? Do you expect to beat Liverpool at home?
I think it's different then to doing it now, because now we know that teams are fighting for Europe, relegation, the title. There's more pressure on. Start of the season, I don't know what teams are going to be fighting for relegation or Europe, so I can predict it a bit easier because we're on a level slate to a degree. Whereas now, is Burnley away an easy game? On paper, that's 3 points wrapped, but it won't be easy because they've got motivation.
I mean, we slapped them.
We did, but I'm saying if we had them now, when they're fighting for their lives.
They were fighting for relegation. When we played them,
now it really matters.
They've always been fighting for their life since the first week of the season.
Point, though, the teams that you think are easy, they've got motivation, whereas a mid-table team like Wolves, who are better than Burnley, have no motivation.
Every team that you're playing, you've got the bigger motivation. In my opinion, the title is the biggest motivation there is.
No.
So
is winning the title bigger motivation than staying in the league?
Also, I disagree. I think that when Arsenal pull up, those other teams historically yes, we're raising our game. We're going to get some TV time. Our women can watch us at home. Our other women can watch us at home as well. And you know what I mean? And then, you know what I mean? And so they raise their game. I mean, I feel like this year is one of the few times when the fear factor in Arsenal has been so significant that actually, rather than raise their game in some cases, they've actually been hit by a sense of fear. But usually when Arsenal roll up, people, you know what I mean, there's great pressing.
This is my point.
But
there'll be teams that will play Arsenal and think, we're not having it today.
But my point is that regardless, they're always motivated. I don't think that it makes a difference. And I think that the running that we have with the level of players that we're going to be facing does make it significant in terms of how hard it will be week after week. And then what it takes to beat those teams as well, especially on their patch.
Are Arsenal winning this weekend?
I think it'll be a draw.
I would say a draw is for the smart money. And if the game, if there is a win, that the winning goal will be scored in the last 15 minutes, for sure.
I'll go last 6 minutes.
I'll go last 5.
99.
Kai Havertz.
Should be a good weekend in the Premier League as it returns. We'll react to it all next week. We're going to be talking about culture wars next, and we'll get into the England shirt debate a little bit as well. Stay with us, much more to come. I mean, listen, this is going to be an interesting conversation. The football shirt nonsense last week, that's how I describe it anyway, but listen, I was reading reports on it this morning. All the different ex-players and voices in football, politics as well, who were absolutely furious. So let's call it a little bit of anger last week over England's new shirt. Features an altered version of the St. George's cross on the collar. The FA manufacturers, Nike as well, say they've got no plans to recall the jersey. I like it actually, this England shirt, by the way. Nike described the navy, light blue and purple little lines as a playful update to the nation's flag. They said the changed kit is not virtue signalling, but instead a nod to the 1966 World Cup winners. Now, many fans, many commentators disagreed, reacted angrily. Some branded it woke. and dumb and various things. It was a weird story because I think there were themes of nationalism coming out in people quite a lot. You know, it's impossible to change the shirt. How could they possibly have done this? Then it came out that it's happened on previous shirts.
A few times, yeah.
Then it came out, of course, that we've only had the the St. George's Cross on 6 England shirts ever. So it isn't even a thing that we customarily do. But actually, I wanted to sit back and kind of look at it through a political lens, really, in terms of 2024, general election year, and culture war stories, and the ease with which they are amplified at the moment, I think. And I think this is a really good example of it. And just how easy it is to kind of light the flame on the country using these stories. And it was kind of a signifier of the power of them, you know, through a political spectrum. It was like, well, no one can disagree with this, you know, no one can come out and say they don't really care because there's an election this year. So Keir Starmer, Labour leader, he's got to say, yep, Nike should change the kit, and Rishi Sunak has to say that as well, because no one wants to say, well, no one wants to mention the cost of living crisis, no one wants to mention Gaza, no one wants to mention any of the schools or education or hospitals or anything like that. So, but they'll go both barrels on this. I saw someone describing it as the only thing that all politicians have actually agreed on in the last God knows how many years, because no politician wanted to say, I don't really think it's that big a deal. Interestingly, I probably got more abuse than I have for a while, any football opinion, because I was on TalkSport and said, I just don't see why people are getting so triggered by it. It's not that big a deal to me. Like, I get why they've tried to change the flag, and in my mind it was because they thought it looked good. And you can debate whether that's right or wrong, but people were kind of saying while we were on air, actually they're trying to tell us how to think. And I was a bit like, and listen, I had a mate genuinely who was like, you know, he was angry with me because he was like, you're telling people who really care about the St. George's Cross how they should think. And I was like, no, I'm not telling them how to think. I just don't think it's that big a deal. And I'm being told I'm not really English, I'm not really British, because I'm not really angry about it.
Blood,
yeah. And that was another one of the interesting things, because of course these people that are like, this country has been great for you, you know, those are the people that are kind of implying that to you, you know, if you don't like it and blah 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 blah. But those are the same people saying to you, well, you're not really English, even though they love free speech if you disagree with me, which was the kind of crazy thing about it. But it underlines the power of the culture war stuff, because it can be incredibly divisive. Like that, you go from like, not even just we disagree on this one topic, but like, you're not even British or you're not even English. Like, that's how divisive these stories, a football shirt, can make our country, really. Like, and for me, it's quite sad because it's so easy and it's so simple. And we've got politicians who are going to do it this year. They're going to start talking about, and people were talking about it with the shirt. Trans debate suddenly comes up. I'm like, I don't know what, I actually had to say to my mate, like, he said the first thing I saw when I saw the updated flag that Nike put on the back of the shirts, he goes, I knew it was about inclusion and diversity. I was like, which bit? Which bit screamed to you the moment you looked at it? He said, I hadn't even read the story. I didn't even know other people were angry. I just saw it and I knew immediately. And I was like, which bit? Which was it the dark blue line? Was it the light blue line? Was it the purple line?
Right, is Nike say it isn't, but let's say it was. And the offence that people feel at a country which represents a broad swathe of people, bear in mind, even before you talk about race and gender, bruv, Scousers feel very different to Londoners, who feel very different to people growing up in the Cotswold. You know, this country is a mishmash of people. Nations are very much imagined entities anyway. But outside of that, right, what is the offence about wanting to be inclusive? And what you've seen, or what we've rather seen in the past, even in the past decade even, is this sense that because the country and because football is becoming a sport which is now far more inclusive in various different ways, even the fact that some of the leading stars a lot of the time are young black men who come from slightly different cultures, they're listening to Afrobeat, listening to grime, listening to rap, and you have this kind of dinosaur class of commentator who look at these players and they don't relate to them and they see something different, and therefore they are constantly fighting back against what is ultimately progress and modernity, whether it's in the women's game, whether it's in Pogba's haircuts, whether it's in these players saying we value these things and therefore we want to take the knee and then you have them being booed for these things. And so you're seeing this kind of fight to try to reclaim football and take it back to something that it was. But they need to accept that this game has grown. You know, these clubs no longer just exist in these localities. The game is globalized, and with that brings diversity, and people need to be okay with that, and they need to be real with that. And fundamentally, some of the values that they are trying to drive off the back of more antiquated ideas are harmful, and sometimes they're outright racist. So when people say to you, "Oh, you're not even English because you're not angry about this," they're driven by racialized ideas of the nation. So I think that there should be a pushback against that, and I think that we should say, do you know what? The game has evolved. We should be proud of the evolution, and ultimately, the every time these kind of culture wars emerged, we need people with stronger voices just to say, actually, we've moved on from these conversations. We want a game to be inclusive, and we're okay with that, and we're proud of that. Move on.
For me, and this is the thing, I think it's going to be important for all of us this year. All journalists in this country, really. And I know there are journalists that their job is to sell culture wars. I get that. But it's still important, I think, for those. And I always talk about, so it's a sad thing to say, to put into these terms, but like fighting fire with fire. On the culture war arguments, one of the major issues for me is the people that are angry about them are so aggressively, strongly angry about them. And the people who aren't are totally indifferent. It's not like we're angrily that you should not care. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not there going like, you shouldn't care about this, in the way that people are angrily telling me that I should care about this, right? It's not a 50-50. You get people who are really angry about something saying that you should care. And if you don't, then you're X and you're not like me and we're different and you shouldn't be in this country, or you're not really English, just to use this example. And then there's me just going, no, I just don't think it's that deep. And that's a big issue, right? So for journalists, I think, somehow in our writing, in our portrayal of these stories, we need to get the level of you shouldn't care about this, or this isn't a big deal, or we don't
ramp up a little bit more.
But the thing is, we don't want to tell. The other thing is, people kind of on the left, or just people just generally centre left, or just kind of liberal, they don't want to tell people how to think. Actually, it's the people who are all about not being told. They don't want to be told what to do, but they're happy to tell us what to do, and they're angry about. So I just want to know. What's the question, really? Like, no, but it's how do journalists in this year of 2024, when these stories, how do they report them without telling people how to think, but getting the message across that actually this is specifically designed to divide us, to create distraction, to get you angry about something that isn't something that actually affects your life, like the roads, transport, schools, infrastructure, hospitals, whatever it might be.
I don't know is the short answer. I mean, I was asked to cover this story on Friday. Was it Friday? Thursday? Friday.
Kind of the anger kind of kicked off on Thursday.
Yeah, but Friday I was in the office and we were laughing about it, and we were laughing actually at the people who was frothing at the mouth with anger. You know, Symeon mentioned in our newsroom that the fact that people are calling in to phone-ins, radio phone-ins, and daytime TV shows about this genuinely vexed is not something that we should be engaging in, because it's like who are these people anyway, with all due respect. So I spent the whole rest of the day Hugh laughing at these people, because I'm just like a bit like you. I'm like, really, of all the things you should and could be angry about today and this week and this month, this is the thing. I went to Nike Town to do some Vox Pops, and people down there were genuinely a bit like, nah, they probably should have changed it, but I'm just gonna go and get my trainers from Nike. It doesn't affect me in the way that some people it did. But when the following day I thought about it some more, and what I did was I was okay, let me try and, in any debate, you should try and see where the other person's coming from. So people are angry about the flag being changed. Okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to laugh anymore at people that were angry about it, because the flag, or any flag, we're of Jamaican heritage. If they changed the Jamaican flag, would I be angry? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't be on board with it, but I wouldn't be angry about it. Yeah. But other people are angry about this, and them feeling that sense of identity to the flag, whatever flag it may be, is their right. Yeah. You're allowed to feel like the flag is that's fine. Doesn't work for me, but for you, fine. So I'm not going to laugh at you for feeling like changing your flag makes you feel like your identity is being tarnished. Yeah. what I think the real issue isn't should people be angry at the flag being changed. It's what does the flag being changed and their anger really say about Britain? And that for me is, to Symeon's point, I think there's a section of people who were angry, who don't like what I'm now calling the hip-hopification of football and sport and society. So they look at their England team now and they see dark-skinned men wearing an England shirt. They look at their team and they see the white players who are engaged in hip-hop culture. And I want to be clear, I'm not chatting about music, I'm chatting about hip-hop culture. Everything that comes with that, your Declan Rices. Look at how they talk, they walk, they dress. Look at how they conduct themselves in Madison's. Do you know what I mean? And the people that are angry and frothing at the mouth about the changing of the flag, that's why they're angry. It's not the flag change.
It's got nothing. It's not about the flag.
It's not about the flag.
It's about the dislike that football has become a space which is far more diverse, and they do not have hegemony over it. So,
do you think it's a country, not just football?
Well, first of all, we're talking about fringe, right? So these outrages start off from very fringe groups, very oftentimes extreme groups. These are the people historically who were chanting on terraces, throwing bananas at players. This comes from a fringe of people. This comes from a tradition rather of people who were booing players like Rashford and sending abuse to Saka. This comes from a very particular fringe of people that then escalates and cascades, and then therefore maybe these people who are not quite as extreme with that might suddenly embrace it, and then they're in their corner, and then it basically filters up to politicians who, in trying to appease who they believe are these group of voters who they represent, even though they're a far smaller group, suddenly then give it greater legitimacy and boost it.
But it was interesting because there were a lot of mainstream voices. I mean, I wouldn't call these people necessarily.
Who?
I wouldn't call these people.
Who's credible?
No, but I'm talking about ex-players, right? So when I say mainstream, I'm talking about ex-players who are working for major broadcasters.
Hang on. But who says those ex-players are moderate? A lot of them are becoming very, very extreme, and they're becoming extreme because, one, there's an audience for it, but also because there's wider radicalization in those spaces. So, I mean, there have been so many, retired footballers of a particular generation where football was not so inclusive, who will come out and they will begin to share conspiracy theories. You have right now ex-footballers engaged in very overtly sexist abuse of women footballers and commentators. These are not moderate people. And I don't think that we should be accepting them as just legitimate kind of voices when they're outright engaged in harassment campaigns.
What about the politicians then? Because they were full square behind Nike. Nike need to change this, and the FA need to do something too. And for a lot of those, you wouldn't call them extreme or on the fringe.
Why not? Why not?
Well, people like Keir Starmer.
I mean, look.
That goes to your point earlier, sorry, about them playing the game. It's election year. Playing the game.
Political leaders being cowardly is different to them being extreme. Mm-hmm. But it becomes a thing where how very fringe issues cascade and suddenly occupy, the national debate, when actually we should be talking about what does this actually really tell us. This is not loads of people in the country angry about this otherwise quite nice shirt, which I looked in, I was like, right, I might have to go and get that shirt, maybe.
Benham 10.
125 is a lot of money. That's the maybe.
That's the real story.
That's the maybe. I'm like, listen, do I have the money to get that shirt? You know what I'm saying?
And the two are linked, by the way, but that's a separate.
So it's like, and then it cascades. But the majority of people who enjoy football, who live across this country, are going to go and buy that shirt, and they're going to wear that shirt, and they're going to cheer that football team. And this very fringe sound, the same people who were saying it's okay to boo the team, are not reflective of everybody in the public. And I think that what it would be nice to have are rational people in public life who can just say, that's noise. Yeah. But ultimately, we know that's not how the media works.
It's a bit of a mad one, because I think there were a lot of people that were, claiming to be so in love with the country that this was making them so incredibly angry that they were just kind of so incensed that the flag would ever be changed. Again, I think being told to think that, because like I said, it was kind of skirted over that it's happened before in the past. Actually, strangely, in the past, it was actually said explicitly by the shirt's designers, we're changing the colours because we want the St. George's Cross to be seen as being representative of a multicultural England. That was 13 years ago. we didn't have the uproar. And that's why the culture war thing struck me so much, because it was evident. We were living in a time then where the culture wars were not a big part of our national debate, or the way that the prism with which we're looking through society, right? And culture wars are now in many, many different ways. It's just whatever it might be, white privilege, all these things that people are like, you can't teach that to kids, or you can't teach people that trans people are equal, there's only two genders. All this nonsense is much more a part of the national conversation than it was 20 years or 13 years ago. So it was immediately evident to me, okay, we just gravitate towards them. I think as the media, we gravitate towards selling these stories now because we know people are going to hook into them in a way that they didn't previously. And that's why I think I wanted to talk about culture wars more widely than the shirt itself, because they're going to happen more and more this year, I think. I mean, look, Lee Anderson, who, all right, I get it, he's defected, he's gone to Reform, but he was the deputy chair previously. I know we've spoken about him on a previous podcast of the Conservative Party, but he said explicitly, we're going to have to fight the election on culture wars because we haven't got much else to fight on. We can't really mention a positive record on the economy or on hospitals or housing. So we're going to have to fight on these things, which means they will appear more. And I just wondered how we kind of listen. We're two people. We're many.
You
people
also have to
here,
remember that those kind of politicians are not the only people that benefit from culture wars. If you run a sports broadcaster and there's no sport that day, what are you going to put on to talk about? Okay, people talking about this flag. Let's clip this up. 2 million views, 5 million views, people tuning in. And so it's the extreme positions also drive content. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's something, if you are in the media game, you know that if you can make someone angry, you can make them cry. If you can drive any kind of emotion, then you can get their eyeballs. And that is the monetized aspect of all of this outrage. And it does a lot of harm to the public conversation, the national psyche. And how you resist that is another conversation.
I think we just quickly need to discuss on this podcast as well the England flag, because I think a lot of the media, where you're looking at it, there was a widespread view of what the England flag represents and what it means to people, and it does mean a lot to people. But I think there were a lot of ethnic minority people that were like, hold on a minute, people that grew up in the 80s, were like, this flag represented something very different to me than it does to you. You can't. There were a lot of people telling people how to feel about the flag. Like I said, if you're not kind of angry at this, then you're not really English. I'm like, well, hold on a minute. And I tried to explain to one of my mates, I was like, this, my relationship with the country, for a lot of us, it's like we love the country more than white English people. We have to, because of how the country has treated our ancestors, our parents, us now, our women, if they're giving birth to a child, jobs, and opportunities and all of these things. It's like, how could I not love the country? I'm there cheering England on, sitting beside you. And I'm not saying that anyone who's not an ethnic minority has a great relationship with England or gets everything their own way or has all the privilege in the world either, by the way. I'm not saying that. I think I always say this, that class is kind of the number one operative factor in this country in particular. And you can be any different class from in any race, you can sit within different class groups. But ultimately, it was kind of like, do we have to sit down and explain once again why certain people view England or Britain through a different lens? It's like, a lot of people don't want the full history of Britain to be taught in schools. But it's one of those episodes where I was kind of like, you really should know why some people don't feel the same way.
They don't want to know. I think even if we did explain to them why we find the St. George's cross on the flag problematic, they wouldn't want to hear it anyway. So I'm not trying to waste my time trying to talk to a racist as to why actually I don't feel the same about the flag as you do. My thing is, I think you're entitled to feel vexed that they've changed your flag. Just be honest about why you're vexed. That was my problem. And I heard a lot of people trying to hedge around, not say this is diversity gone too far or this, but really, that's what they were really saying without saying it.
I mean, when they
just
call
be
it,
honest.
But when they say woke, that's what they mean.
No, but some people haven't even gone as far as say woke. Someone was just saying, oh, there's a narrative coming out of Nike. My big thing was, if you are genuinely angered by the flag being changed, you're allowed to do that. That's fine. Doesn't anger me, but that's fine. I won't laugh at you anymore for being vexed by the flag being changed. Just be honest about why you're angry about it.
Okay, I appreciate that point. And on that note, I think that's the best place to end. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
I think that was a good place to end. Symeon, it's been fantastic to have you with us.
Cheers, man.
Thanks for having me.
Make sure you come back again soon. Giving up your time.
Well, it's an election year and Arsenal are going to win the double this year, so we'll get you back on at some point soon throughout the summer.
All right, I'll be here for the celebration party.
All right, let's do it.
We need to have like a general election special whenever it gets announced, if it ever gets announced, or we
On
do
that
some
day,
kind of Donald Trump
Avengers
style.
assemble. Let's do it.
We're going to bring together the best black reporters around politics in the country
I'm down.
for a general election special. That's a promise to you. Anyway, thank you for listening to episode 5. Remember to subscribe, to like it. Go to YouTube and subscribe as well, please. And most importantly, share it with your friends. Start a conversation, and hopefully we can build something good here together. We really appreciate you listening. We'll see you soon.